favourite memories from doing Quatermass was going up to Adrian Bauer at the very end of it and saying to him, oh, you know, well done, Adi, well, you know, it was great, wasn't it? And him turning around to me and going, no, man, I tried. And for some reason that stuck in my mind because I felt so sorry for him because he's like a really good mate and he'd had a little problem with the drive, obviously, but it proves it was live. And I think for me, that just showed that, you know, that's what it was about, doing it live, and it was real and you are actually watching it.
It's sort of well documented where Adrian, who plays Full of Love, you know, died, you know, and again, I mean, that was just, it was extraordinary because, and I know it was probably hard for him, but it was kind of a good experience as well that happened because he got himself out of it, and Paul, who he's working with, they got out of it, you know, they climbed out of that hole, you know, they looked into the void and managed to get out of it.
You know it's live when you see an actor just going, you know it's live, and that I think is exciting. It's like, you know, the reason you go and see Formula One racing is obviously because you really admire the machines and you think that the drivers are really brave, but there's a certain part of your head that wants to see a car flip off and, you know, turn over 600 times and burst into flames. I mean, there just is. And I think when you watch live telly, at least the members of Equity are there waiting for an actor to die. And I think that's part of the fascination of doing live film.
Fight this!
It's getting colder.
Fight it!
Pressurization? No. Pressurization.
Ludwig! Fight this! Fight this with me!
So there's a change in the sound.
Being in the turbine hall at the end of the film meant that I'd done the bulk of it, and I know I hadn't stumbled, and at that point, because I was on my own, I couldn't let anyone else down. So I felt okay, but there's just reams of dialogue which are kind of to yourself, basically, you know, thinking that the spirit or the creature is in the ether of the air and in the fabric of the building. So it was really weird. I mean, it was the loneliest. It was like the loneliest I've ever felt because there was no one else to help you. I did forget. I didn't know what I was talking about. But when you're scared, fear translates on camera as intensity. So it just looked like I was really intense, really good at acting and committed to what I was doing. But really, I was just absolutely whacking my pants.
We didn't sort of rehearse too much of it a dry way. He built it up and built it up and built it up. And it was one of those pieces that we knew that come the night he would arrive there, and that was and he was confident he would, and I was confident he would, and he did. You know, it was quite incredible what he did throughout the whole last section of the film. You know, and it really was. You know, in terms of, you know, actors being like athletes, you know, that was a real example of him. You know, he raised his game and raised his game and raised his game, and he came to that end and raised it even further. You know, to get there at the ending. You know. Terrific piece of work.
It was a really exciting experience, and by the end, when we reached the end, we all went a bit mad. You know, when Quatermass finally comes out and he's defeated the alien thing, whatever it is, he comes out and we were all elated. And it was quite good because it could have been, you know, elation at the fact that he'd defeated the monster, but it was also because we got through it alive.
I'll always remember doing scenes with Indira Varma and just laughing so hard I was in tears, which is always fun and naughty and you shouldn't really do it. But so I suppose I'll remember that. I'll remember the sense of getting through it. When we finished, it really felt like we'd won a war. Pathetically, we all felt like we'd achieved something extraordinary, and it was just a very happy time, and it was an extraordinary time, and probably unlike anything I will ever do again.
Originally, we were commissioned as a 2-hour drama, and we were given that slot because we didn't know how long it was going to be. We didn't know how it was going to stretch or shrink. However, as rehearsals progressed, and as that process of going through each speech and cutting out the bits that felt too exposition driven, we realised that the length was coming down. And so by probably 10 days before transmission, we knew that we were probably running at about 1 hour 45. So that was all that was all cleared with the BBC, presentation knew about it, and that was all fine. What actually happened on the day was that, again, because of the adrenaline-fueled performances, things did speed up slightly. Cuts were sharper than we'd expected, which was a good thing. And occasionally, actors managed to get to their marks quicker than we'd anticipated. So that did shrink the time again by another couple of minutes, which did mean that we ended up having an underrun of approximately 17 minutes, according to the billing times. But that wasn't, that was something that, had already been, flagged up to the powers that be, if you like.
Fear and success, the two things which bond actors. If you do a film that's successful, everyone talks to each other forever. If you do a film that's a disaster, no one ever sees each other again. But if you do a film that's terrifying, then that's as bonding as success. And hopefully with Quatermass, we had a bit of both. I'm pretty happy with all of it, yeah. I am pretty happy with all of it. Yeah. There's a couple of bits where I go, oh God, that was really eggy, but there's a few bits where I know I'm lost, a little bit lost, and I'm kind of like, going down the glass going, and I know I'm in trouble. So they're kind of eggy, but because I got through it, I think it's quite funny now watching those bits. But I've only watched it through 12 times. No, I've only watched it through twice. I love it. I'm really proud of it. Really proud of it.
I watched it back the morning after. Mark Gatiss and I actually watched it together. And it was a very odd experience. But surprisingly smooth, something that had felt like we were literally running from pillar to post, because we never saw the feed. We never were quite aware of how it was all looking, of how it was all adding up. And because of the high definition tape that they used and the grading that because they could grade it live as well, I think it looked rather posh. I think we were rather taken with it. And it was very smooth, and it all went so kind of seamlessly. In the couple of the moments when it did go slightly wrong, even the next day, we were literally on the edge of the sofa, kind of, no, come on, hold it together, you can do it. And this was after the event. I mean, I think if I'd been watching it live, it might have killed me. I think I'd have had a heart attack, just sort of empathizing with these people who were trying to get through this.
I'm very proud of the fact that it wasn't just a 50s recreation, which would have been great fun to have done it full on period dress and like fill that gap in the archives from the missing episodes, as it were. But I think it was a very interesting experiment to do, and I think it's something that television should do more of, particularly BBC4 with its remit really to be a sort of more challenging and experimental channel. It was a real flagship, I think, in those terms of what you can do, and the fact it generated a lot of excitement, it seemed to me, in the industry and with other actors, definitely, who all thought we were mad to have a go at it.
I think the 2005 production was a fascinating experiment in doing a live show, and in fact, on one level, doing a live show more testing than the original one was, in that the original, at least, was 6 chunks of 30 or 35 minutes, whereas here there was a condensed version, not that much longer than the Hammer condensation, but nevertheless a condensed version which had to be performed live all the way through, telling the entire arc of the story in a 90-minute time span, which, after all, they didn't have to do back in 1953. I think one of the distinguishing features of the new version for me was the acting, specifically the acting under pressure. I thought the acting